Thousands gather around Union Pacific's Big Boy 44 cameras out, kids climbing the fence for a better view. Now here is what remains of the Pennsylvania Railroad on one grainy photograph. How did America's most powerful steam locomotives become too expensive to even scrap carefully? We are talking about machines that could pull entire towns worth of freight up mountain grades, engines that cracked their own railroad's infrastructure just by rolling over it, and one experimental speed demon that vanished so completely you will never stand beside it in a museum. To understand why these monsters existed, let us start with the problem they were built to solve. Western mountain grades ran as steep as 1.55%, sustained for over 30 miles. Appalachian coal routes climbed with trains weighing thousands of tons, and wartime freight demand doubled in the early 1940s. The railroads needed power. More specifically, they needed to move massive tonnage over hostile terrain without double-heading locomotives or calling for helpers at every grade. Every extra locomotive meant an extra crew. Every helper district meant additional staffing costs. So the engineering escalation began. One massive articulated locomotive could replace two smaller engines, one crew instead of two. Boiler pressures climbed. Tractive effort doubled. Engineers kept adding driving wheels until track inspectors started having nightmares. Design engineers competed for mechanical supremacy. Shop crews took pride in building the largest machines in the world, but here is the paradox. Peak steam technology arrived between 1941 and 1944 at the exact moment the EMDFT diesel proved itself in revenue service. Mechanical departments were designing monuments, while accounting departments watched diesel fuel costs drop. Bigger meant more expensive to operate, more expensive to maintain, and eventually more expensive to preserve. The very power that made them impressive made them impossible to keep. In 1941, Union Pacific's mechanical department had a problem that required a solution bigger than anything on rails. Sherman Hill was a 1.55% grade stretching over 30 miles of Wyoming wilderness. During the war, trains of 3,600 tons crawled uphill. Every train required either double heading, 2488, 4 Challengers with 2 crews, or helper locomotives pushing from behind. Either way, you paid twice. So they built something nobody had seen before, an articulated 4884 that could handle 3,600 tons unassisted at 15 miles per hour upgrade. 25 of them rolled out of Alco's Schenectady works between 1941 and 1944. Someone chalked the name Big Boy on the first one during construction. The name stuck. So did the legend. The numbers: 135,375 pounds of tractive effort, 300 pounds per square inch boiler pressure, 132 feet 10 inches long, 540 tons of locomotive, a small warship's worth of metal strapped to 16 driving wheels and pointed at a mountain. Crews didn't just operate them, they took pride in them. World's largest steam locomotive. For 18 years from 1941 to 1959, Big Boy delivered exactly what it promised. But the hidden economic problem was fuel. Big Boy consumed 22 tons of coal and 11,600 gallons of water per 100 miles. A diesel consumed 150 to 200 gallons of fuel oil for equivalent work. In 1950s dollars, Big Boy's fuel cost ran $45 to $50 per 100 miles. A diesel cost $18 to $22. Then there is maintenance. The articulated mechanism required specialized facilities. Weight and length restrictions limited route flexibility. Shop time measured in days. Diesels, hours. Picture a diesel convoy, 4 units, 1 crew. If one broke down, the other 3 kept rolling. Big Boy, if it broke, you needed a crane in 3 days. 4 65-ton diesel units spread the load across the track like a cautious handshake. Big Boy was a single 540-ton hammer blow. The cruel math. Big Boy's economic window ran from 1941 to 1956. 15 years. Most units were stored by 1959, scrapped between 1961 and 1962. Only 8 of 25 survived as static monuments. Preservation economics were brutal. Scrap value ran $15,000 to $18,000 per locomotive. Preservation estimates started at $50,000 and climbed from there. Accountants looked at the numbers and reached for the cutting torch. If Big Boy was the high-profile Western brute, the next locomotive took pulling power even further and pushed the limits of the track itself. But we still have not talked about the one nobody could photograph in a museum. While Big Boy hauled freight over mountains, another monster was designed for something even more demanding, dragging endless coal trains out of Appalachia. The Chesapeake and Ohio's Allegheny subdivision ran grades up to 1.14%. Trains of 13,500 tons crawled at 12 miles per hour. The railroad needed something that could move mountains of coal without helpers, without double heading, without stopping, so they built the H8 Allegheny. 60 of them were built between 1941 and 1948. The technical escalation went beyond Big Boy. Tractive effort was 110,200 pounds. Each driving axle carried 67,500 pounds. Total weight was 724,500 pounds. Like stacking 2 freight trains on top of each other, calling it a locomotive, then asking it to climb a mountain. Shop crews built these machines with pride. Track maintenance workers dreaded seeing them coming down the line. Design engineers saw the pinnacle of coal hauling power. Accountants started calculating bridge reinforcement costs. Because here is the infrastructure problem. Moving coal was easy. Keeping track and bridges intact was the nightmare. Allegheny routes required Cooper E80 bridge ratings, the heaviest standard in American railroading. Rail replacement cycles shortened from 15 years to 8 or 10 years. On a 100-mile stretch, that 40% reduction meant an extra $180,000 per year in maintenance costs, enough to buy 3 new diesel switchers. It is like buying a truck, so heavy, it cracks your own driveway every time you drive it. Except, the driveway is your entire main line, and fixing it costs more than the truck saves you. The operational constraints piled up. The Allegheny was limited to reinforced routes. Bridges required upgrades. Turntables needed 135-foot capacity. Shop facilities had to accommodate unique procedures, specialized cranes, and pits only applicable to the H8 class. Then came the economic breaking point. 4 diesel units spread 260 tons across 32 wheels, like a basketball player distributing weight across his toes. The Allegheny was like a sumo wrestler landing on one heel. Track maintenance fell by 40% with diesels. Parts were standardized across the fleet. Route flexibility followed, run them anywhere. Maintenance intervals were measured in weeks instead of days. Too powerful to save became brutally literal here. The weight and complexity made them expensive even as museum pieces. Scrap value ran $15,000 to $20,000 per unit. Preservation cost estimates started at $50,000 and climbed from there, and that did not include the specialized facilities needed to house and maintain them. By 1956, they were obsolete. Most were cut up between 1958 and 1960. One preserved example, C&O 1601, survived. 60 sisters went to the torch. The damaged legacy remained: stress cracks in bridges, reinforced structures built specifically for these machines, accelerated rail wear patterns still visible in infrastructure records decades later. If these were extreme freight answers, the last giant was built for something different: speed, spectacle, and a very short career. This last giant did not just disappear from the rails, it disappeared from history entirely. In April 1949, something disappeared from American railroading. No ceremony, no photographs of the end. Pennsylvania Railroad did not even update their publicity materials, they just erased it. What was it? The most futuristic steam locomotive ever built in America. and you will never stand beside it in a museum. Look at this photograph. Art Deco curves, streamlined shroud, 140 feet of polished metal that looks less like a locomotive and more like someone welded a passenger train to a ship's hull. This was Pennsylvania Railroad S1, and it was supposed to be the future, built in 1939 for the World's Fair as a showcase piece. The longest rigid frame steam locomotive ever constructed, 140 feet and 2.5 inches. Experimental duplex drive with a 6-4-4 six-wheel arrangement. Power split between two engine sets for theoretical efficiency gains. Designed for 100 miles per hour plus passenger service. Engineers saw high-speed rail dominance. Passengers rode behind it without knowing they were part of an experiment that would fail within a decade. So what went wrong? The first crack appeared in the wheel arrangement itself. That experimental duplex drive had wheel slip issues above 60 miles per hour. It required careful throttle work. Maintenance was complex for a marginal 5 to 8% efficiency gain, temperamental when you needed reliability. Then the infrastructure problem. 140 feet meant it could not use most existing turntables, and it had severe route restrictions, limited to fewer than 10% of PRR's main lines. Imagine building a sports car that only fits down one street in your entire city. Meanwhile, EMDE7 and EMDE8 passenger diesels arrived between 1945 and 1949. Multiple units, 2,000 horsepower each, interchangeable parts, any route, any combination. The reliable sedans beat the custom sports car. But here is why S1 became the most thoroughly erased. As a one-of-a-kind experimental machine, preservation would have meant maintaining a unique parts supply and specialized knowledge for a single locomotive. Nobody wanted to fund a museum piece that cost as much to maintain as an active fleet. 10 years. Showcased to surplus 1939 to 1949, including wartime storage. Then in April 1949, a scrapper's torch cut through that streamlined shroud at Altoona. The railroad that built it did not even bother documenting the end. No preserved example exists. Only photographs and Raymond Loewy's scale model survive. The most futuristic steam locomotive America ever built disappeared like it never existed. 3 very different monsters, 3 different missions, yet all swept aside in the same historical moment. The pattern holds across all 3. They arrived too late. Between 1939 and 1944, they cost too much to operate, they required infrastructure no one wanted to maintain, and they became too expensive to save. These were not just tools, they were proof of what we could build when we pushed engineering to its breaking point, but sometimes the most impressive engineering is the wrong answer to the problem. The diesels did not win because they were more powerful, they won because they were cheaper. We saved 8 big boys, 1 Allegheny, 0 S1 locomotives. Hit subscribe if you want more stories of giants that almost made it.